Hello and welcome to another AfterMaths episode of the Primary Maths Podcast, the show where we talk all things primary maths with me, John Cripwell.
And me, Becky Brown.
Becky, it is Friday the 13th. It is also, I have to say, Becky, half term for lots of people, or at least it will be in a few hours' time, depending on when you're listening to this. So woohoo for that. But it is Friday the 13th. Which probably explains a few things around here, because if you were listening last week and looking forward to us being joined by our colleague Sally Cole, unfortunately, Sally's not here, is she, Becky?
No, sadly, she has fallen ill with one of the many things that are going around at the moment. It's that awful time of year, isn't it? And so she can't join us after all this week.
No, which is it is fine. It is fine, Becky. Just because we've had to quickly scramble around and find something else to talk about, it's fine. It's all fine. It will be fine. I am calm, calmness personified. It's absolutely fine.
Keep saying it. It will be fine.
It's all fine. It's all fine. So we are, I think everybody has joined us in staggering towards half term, which means that because it is half term next week, for most of us anyway, unless you're listening in Scotland or somewhere else around the world, potentially, we have listeners all over the place, Becky, including far-flung places like Australia and Nigeria and Ghana. Yeah, quite a few different places. But if you are in England and listening to this, it is half term. We are there. So there is no interview episode next Tuesday. So don't bother checking your podcast app for that. We'll be back the following week, but Becky and I will be here next Friday as always, because we would hate to leave you for an entire week without any maths to listen to or think about. But because there's no interview episode next week, we would love to have your suggestions for any deep dives into any mathematical history or things that you'd just like explaining, wondering where that came from or why something is called something, because we've not had an etymology from you for a while, Becky.
No, we haven't. So that would be good to have a listener request for that, John, as well. That'd be good.
Yeah, please. So do get in touch in all the usual places. Send us a DM on social media or email us at primarymathspodcast@twinkle.co.uk. And we will look into whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be maths at this point, does it, Becky, to be fair? Just
we'll take anything.
Loosely related to teaching or maths. And we will fall down that rabbit hole for you so that you don't have to. It's all part of the service that we offer here at the Primary Maths Podcast. Mm-hmm. So, do let us know. Do get in touch, and we would love to do that for you. But that's next week. What are we talking about this week, Becky?
So, obviously, slight change of plan as we don't have Sally with us, but I believe in a slightly terrifying way, you have a maths problem for me, John.
Oh, I do, Becky. I do, yeah.
Yes, a bit worried about that one. I've got some Olympic-themed Maths of Life, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more about Friday the 13th.
Well, yeah, because it is, when this goes out, it will be Friday the 13th. We're recording this on Wednesday the 12th, actually. We pulled it forward a little bit so that Sally could join us, but, these things happen. So I did think, Becky, since it is Friday the 13th when this goes out, I messaged you, didn't I? And I said, I'm sure we've talked about Friday the 13th before on the podcast, but I can't find any record of it anywhere.
No, and I did do a little search as to what the last Friday the 13th was, John, and it was actually the week before we started the podcast. So I don't think we did, although I do think we have talked about the number 13.
I think we've talked about the number 13, yeah. So if you would like to go back in the archives and find that episode, it exists, but we're probably going to cover some of the same ground anyway, just briefly, while we look into this idea of why Friday the 13th is a bad luck date, apparently. Not just in the UK and America, but in all sorts of parts of Europe. Although some places, Becky, have Tuesday the 13th or Friday the 17th, which carries the superstition. I didn't go far enough down the rabbit hole to find out quite what's special about Tuesdays or the number 17. Maybe we save that for another episode, but I thought that was interesting. And then obviously in some Asian context, the number 4 can be more heavily avoided as a symbol of bad luck as well. But yeah, mathematically, the date is kind of intriguing because we talked a little bit about the Gregorian calendar last week, the week before. It's all rolling into one back. But essentially, it repeats on a 400-year cycle. 400-year cycle. So yeah,
wow.
It's the cycle of the Gregorian calendar is 146,097 days, which is exactly divisible, as you will know, by 7. So weekday and date patterns recur perfectly every 400 years.
Right.
Yeah. So obviously, thinking about your birthday, that will come round on a Monday, Tuesday, whatever, every 6-7 years, depending on leap years and things like that. But the perfect calendar apparently is 400 years long. So over that cycle, the 13th of the month falls on a Friday 688 times out of 4,800 months, which is roughly 14%, which is slightly more often than any other weekday.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's not good if you don't like Friday the 13th, is it?
No,
that's not great.
I know.
Oh.
But yeah, that's. It figures, given how my life seems to go, that the unluckiest day will come up more often than any other. But it's a shame that we don't have a lucky day, isn't it? Friday the 13th is bad luck. When's the lucky day? What's that supposed to be?
Yeah, good point. I suppose we could guess it would probably be the 7th. We looked into this before, haven't we? I think lucky numbers. It would be the 7th, but I'm not sure what day of the week.
No. Saturdays and Sundays, I would have thought. It's definitely not going to be a Monday, is it? Let's face it.
Not.
No. So empirically, risk evidence is mixed and often small sample or context dependent in terms of whether it's a bad day or not. So a classic UK, well, I'm not going to name drop them, but a newspaper found fewer vehicles were on the M25 on Friday the 13th, which they suggested meant people were avoiding Friday the 13th. But there were more hospital admissions from transport accidents in that same window. And later studies in emergency medicine and surgery often, though, find no meaningful surge in workload or adverse outcomes that might be attributable to the date itself. And basically, there's a little bit of evidence around economics and market forces and that sort of thing. But what it boils down to, Becky, and I hate to burst anybody's bubble here, is that really there isn't a lot of evidence to say that Friday the 13th is particularly unlucky, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame.
No, although I personally could disagree, as I had a very bad accident on Friday the 13th and broke 3 bones in my ankle. So
you did.
For me, it was fairly unlucky, but I don't put that down to being Friday the 13th.
But that was one Friday the 13th, wasn't it? And as we know, that you will live through several, and hopefully you don't break bones every Friday the 13th. So
hopefully not. Hopefully not today. Well, today when the podcast goes out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm guessing, correlation and causation and all that. It's we need to be careful on the data. But just a very brief history of it. The idea, why 13 and why Friday, the two sort of things are not necessarily related, but both of them considered unlucky in their own way, if that makes sense. So typically it's attributed to sort of Christian origins, really, which Friday is seen as symbolically weighty, I suppose, in terms of, in the Catholic tradition, it's a day of penance, and also, of course, the day of the crucifixion as well, when Christians believe Jesus was crucified, Good Friday. So Fridays, despite it being called Good Friday, in the Christian tradition, Friday is not necessarily seen as a particularly lucky day, apparently. And 13, we've talked about this before, definitely, but lots of different reasons why 13 might be considered unlucky. But again, in the Christian tradition, in the Western tradition, sometimes it's attributed to the Last Supper, with 13 present at the table, in lots of retellings of that story. and that it's considered an unlucky number for that reason. And then those sort of two things seem to come together, and the earliest that we've got a record of Friday the 13th itself being considered unlucky is a French reference, believe it or not, Becky, in 1834. Where
Okay, I was going to try desperately to say Friday the 13th in French then, but I don't think I'd pull it off, John, so we'll leave
no?
that.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. There's no real context to that, but it was just recorded in the Britannica and the Library of Congress that French references in 1834 gave the earliest clear documentary evidence of Friday the 13th as a superstition. And then, as I say, in Spain and Greece, it's Tuesday the 13th. It's often treated as the unlucky day. Italy, Friday the 17th. It's framed more ominous than Friday the 13th. And in Japan and China, the number 4, especially things like the 4th of April as well, are avoided because of phonetic association with the word death. So, yeah. There have been some high-profile unlucky things happening on Friday the 13th. Do you want any of those?
Yes, please.
So, I mean, there's some quite old things that happened on that date. So a medieval event that's often quoted in modern origin explainers, but is possibly a little bit shaky in terms of its actual basis, in fact, is the mass arrest of the Knights Templar in France, ordered by Philip IV of France.
Okay.
Which the date given for that is the 13th of October, 1307. But we're not really sure whether that actually happened or not in terms of a historical consensus. It's a little bit shaky, to be honest.
Yeah.
There were some tragedies that occurred on Friday the 13th, though. The Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 crashed in the Andes on the 13th of October 1972. And then there was a mini crash of the markets on Friday the 13th of October 1989. And then the Costa Concordia. Can you remember that the sort of the cruise ship, the Costa Concordia? That happened. That accident happened on January the 13th, 2012. So yeah, Friday the 13th again. But that's 3 little things out of a whole history of different dates and things. So again, it's probably not really a particularly unlucky day, fortunately.
Yeah.
So, if you're
We could
listening on Friday the
probably find
13th,
examples.
yeah, absolutely. Find examples of things happening, and we could probably find lots of good things that happened on Friday the 13th as well. So if you are listening on Friday the 13th, you're probably okay. Don't worry about it. Try not to overthink it. Be fine. Essentially, we've just wasted the last 10 minutes of your time. Don't worry about it. It's all fine.
This Friday the 13th is outweighed by the fact that it is half term. So that outweighs
Exactly,
any
yeah.
bad luck, surely.
What could possibly be better than that? Although maybe it is unlucky for you, Becky, because I am going to give you a maths problem to have a go at now. I'm going to put you on the spot in front of the nation and the international stage, actually. As we've said, we have lots of international listeners. Try not to think about that, Becky. But so I was talking to Phil Hurd, who was a guest on this podcast.
Yeah.
We talked about problem solving, and I was talking to him about problem solving again. And we were talking about well, I won't say exactly what caused us to talk about this because it might give you an insight, and I don't want to give you any help at all, Becky. So he posed this question to me, and he said, imagine you've got a knockout tennis competition like Wimbledon, for example, or the Australian Open, since we've just had the Australian Open.
Okay.
And at the start of the tournament, disregard doubles and men and women's draws and stuff like that. At the start of the tournament, let's say just on the women's side, there are 128 players. Okay? 128 players at the start of the tournament. How many matches will be played in that tournament on the women's side of the draw, Becky? Now, as ever, Becky, because I'm a good teacher, I'm not looking for an answer particularly. I'm looking for your thoughts and your reasoning around this. And I was put on the spot with this in front of a room full of teachers, so I feel your
So
pain here,
you're
but I feel like it
okay.
happened to me. It should happen to you as well.
Okay. So I feel like what I would do is, so there's 128, did you say? We were going for
Yep.
128? So we'd start with half of that for the matches.
Yep, because everybody plays each other. Everybody plays
Yeah.
another person. Yep, so that would be 64 matches.
64.
Wouldn't it, there?
And then
Yep.
you'd half that again for the next round. Oh.
Because half those players have gone out. Yep.
Yeah. And then continue to half it until you got to 2, which would be the final.
Okay. Yeah.
And then add them together.
And that would be it. Okay. So we could do that, right? It's not too much maths, is it? It's piece of paper and a pen. We could do that.
Yeah.
But what we were talking about was this idea that the best mathematicians do the easiest maths, right? Now, I didn't see it this way. I did exactly what you just said there, Becky. That's how I worked it out.
Yeah.
But there is quite a beautiful way of looking at it. So, what actually happens in a knockout tournament? What happens at the end of every match?
There's a winner and a loser.
There's a winner and a loser. So after every match that's played, there's a winner and a loser. Overall, how many winners are there of the entire tournament? How many? One. So what happened to every other player?
They all were knocked out.
They were all knocked out. So how many players were knocked out?
127.
So how many matches must have been played?
127.
127, yeah. So without doing any maths at all, we can sort of reason our way to why that must be. So just to recap, 128 players, one winner. So 127 must lose. And if every match eliminates exactly one player, 127 losers, there must be 127 matches. And that's all there is to it. So the thing that I loved about that is that it was, you didn't have to compute anything. You didn't have to calculate anything. If you are able to take a step back, which neither myself nor you did, Becky, and maybe if we'd had more time and we weren't put on the spot, but I don't know, then you can see the structure of it and understand why that 127 must be the answer.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was a really nice thing to do. And then, that would work, wouldn't it? Whether there was 1,000 players or 17 players, it's all going to be the same. The logic's got to be the same. So it's the total number of matches equals n minus 1. Always.
Oh, it seems so obvious now. I mean, that was beautiful. I loved that, John. It seems so obvious.
I liked it. So feel free to take that, Becky, and you can ambush anybody with that now. It's yours.
Yeah.
Take it out into the world.
Will.
Yeah, and have some fun. But it was just that really nice example of the best mathematicians doing the easiest maths, I think, and that's what we should be looking for, isn't it? The kind of, we can see the procedure, we can see, and I think what both our answers did exemplify was that we could see the structure. We knew what was happening after each match, but we were looking for the numbers, weren't we? I think, rather than thinking about what happened, maybe. That's the trap that's really easy to fall into.
Well, I'm glad that you fell into the trap as well, John. It wasn't just me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I probably took longer to fall into the trap than you did, Becky. I was, yeah. I mean, the good thing is that I like my tennis and things, so I had an idea of how the tournament worked. But I did get slightly hung up on, hang on, with the doubles matches here, are we talking men's and women's? About mixed doubles, you've got to take all that out. Just put that to one side.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
So
for sharing.
Let's keep the sporting theme going, Becky. It is, as we're recording this, the Winter Olympics, isn't it? And I believe I'm asking this with slight trepidation, given the last time we were recording and you talked about Olympic scoring systems and things. You tried to explain the diving scoring system to me, and I'm still having sleepless nights about that now. So what can you tell me about what you've noticed with the Winter Olympics?
Well, just a little brief talk about the maths, because maths is everywhere at the Winter Olympics, or often any sporting event, actually. You mentioned our diving scoring. Very early days of the podcast, Jon attempted to explain it, failed, still don't really understand it. I'm not going to go into any complex scoring
Excellent.
systems.
We've learnt our lesson there, yes.
Yes. We could also spend ages going into stats and
If anybody
scoring
wants to find
systems
that
and things.
episode, by the way, just go back and look for the episode that's 4.5 hours long while Becky tries to get me to understand how the scoring system works in the diving events. Yeah.
Yeah. That'll all come back out again when we get to the Olympics and we're talking about diving again. Maybe we'll have a better understanding. I doubt it. Yeah, so we could be here a long time if we started to delve deep into those scoring systems. But I have been a little bit intrigued by some scoring. Nothing far too complex this time, but I've been watching the freestyle snow events. So that's both skiing and snowboarding. And it encompasses a whole range of things, some of which I hadn't heard of before now, I'm going to admit. Moguls, aerials, and then...
Moguls! Those are...
Yes.
They're mad. I saw somebody skiing down. I don't know if all moguls have jumps in them as well, but for anybody who's not caught the moguls, they're like little hills in... So normally, you imagine skiing... I've never been skiing on snow. I did a little bit of dry slope skiing once upon a time when I thought that I might go skiing, but I never have been. But when I picture a ski slope, Becky, I'm imagining a smooth white field, that you just swish down like you see them doing in the slalom and things. The moguls are not that, are they? It's like a giant mole has burrowed under the snow and popped up everywhere. And you've got these they're like speed bumps, aren't they? Almost going down the... And these skiers go flying down there. They've got spring-loaded shock absorber legs. They're incredible. And then every now and again, there's a jump where they just sort of fling themselves off and do a flip of some sort.
Yes.
Yeah. And then continue on more moguls going down the hill. It is bonkers. I have never seen anything like it. And if you haven't seen it, have a little look. If you've got bad knees, though, don't, you'll have nightmares about it because it looks terrifying. Looks like an ACL injury waiting to happen.
Yeah, fascinating to watch. I'm loving watching all the freestyling. It is really good. But so hadn't come across that before, though. They must have had it maybe 4 years ago, but I couldn't remember. And one of the main things that makes these events freestyle is around the judging. So unlike things like figure skating, where the tricks have a certain difficulty rating or a certain score, these freestyle events are judged on the overall impression of the run. I suppose the slight exception being the big air event, which is essentially just one big trick. So it is all on one. And the scores range from 1 through to 100. And then an average is taken from the judges, which gives you the final score. So that's fairly straightforward. But what I found really interesting is there isn't a universally agreed upon way to calculate or determine those exact scores. So the scores are less sort of a list of things that you would pick from, a bit like the diving, and more a way to compare the different athletes, like a way to accurately place athletes on the leaderboard.
So are we saying this is more sort of vibes-based scoring then, Becky? Well,
I mean, I think there's probably a little bit more to it than that. But
it's sounding like it's kind of vibes-based scoring here, Becky. Here's some things that you might score them against, but
really? Well, there's a list of criteria, but for the actual tricks, there's not that trick will get a score of this amount.
Okay, I see. Right.
So you couldn't compare a skier's score in this event with something they did last year because it's all relative compared to the other skiers.
Right.
So it's about ranking them against each other rather than using a formula or even their own history or the history of events that have come before.
Or that particular course or whatever, because I guess that sort of thing impacts it as well, doesn't it? That sort of makes sense.
Yeah,
wow,
so
interesting.
We narrowly missed out on a bronze medal. The Royal We, Team GB, narrowly missed out on it. And I was like, we've missed out by, I think it was 0.5 of a point. And somebody else would say, well, yeah, we did, but actually that's because that run wasn't as good as the other one. So it was always going to score lower because it's all about comparing with the other athletes' scores. So
wow.
There we go.
Just thinking what that would look like in education. So, getting away from a standardized score across the. Well, actually, I guess thinking about it, the scale score at the end of Key Stage 2,
That's what it
given
is, really,
out,
isn't
isn't
it?
it? Once it's been compared with, how pupils did nationally against one another. So, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So like a
maybe,
scaled score type basis.
yeah. Okay,
Hmm.
right. I've never thought of scale
Yes.
scores as being a vibe-based scoring system before, but yeah, that makes sense now I think about it.
Yeah, it's just quite
Wow,
interesting because I think normally
it
you'd
is.
have a set, you'd expect this score for this sort of tricks, but it doesn't work quite like that. You have to sort of depend on what's gone before and so on. But yeah, so I was just quite interested by that. Found it quite intriguing.
Well, just off the top of my head to answer your question, Becky, I've just consulted my mental compendium of winter events at the Winter Olympics, and if my memory serves me right, it was 1992. Let me just read this: Albertville Games in France that moguls were officially introduced into
Oh,
the Winter Olympics, but they had, as I remember, I was but a very small child at the time in 1988. There'd been a demonstration of them in the Calgary Games in 1988. But yeah, moguls, bonkers.
yeah.
Definitely have a look at them if you haven't already.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And there is really maths everywhere. The big air itself was talking about degrees of turn, when they're doing their spins
yeah,
and talking in 360s and 720s, or a switch one where they land facing the other way. So that's 180 or 540. And my
I,
brain was trying to make it
yeah, I
fractions,
know.
but
Yeah, it's
yeah.
such a good way to. I was working. I had the pleasure of working with some skit students again last week, so teaching students again last week, and it was a hectic day where we were covering ratio and proportion, algebra, geometry, and measures all in one
Wow.
day. All the subject knowledge that you need to teach those things, just absolutely
Just in
fine.
one day.
But we were talking about what you are measuring when you're measuring angles. And I think it's such a common misconception amongst children that it's got something to do with length or, the distance between two lines when you are sort of measuring angles. And so, yeah, I got everybody out their seats and we did some different turns and we talked about how we would describe those turns, turning from facing one way to facing the opposite way, and then a quarter turn and things. And we realised that we were using angles to describe those things. And so it's a obviously a nice way to introduce that we're measuring turn and the amount of
Yeah,
turn. And I think the Winter Olympics gives a great opportunity, doesn't it, to have those conversations with your class. It doesn't really
definitely.
matter what year group you're in. I don't think. I know it's not necessarily part of the Key Stage 1 curriculum, but yeah, have a chat about turn and how we measure that in a complete turn being 360 degrees and two turns 720, etc. Lovely opportunities for those things to come up naturally and have a bit of
Yeah,
maths of life in there.
definitely.
Well, I think that just about wraps us up for this week, Becky. Happy half term to all those who celebrate. And we will be back. We won't be back on Tuesday, as I say, but we will be back next Friday. Do send in what you would like us to talk about, and we will have a happy half hour or so chatting about those things once we've done our research.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. And if you enjoyed listening to today's episode, please do share it. And if you have time to give a quick rating or review, we'd really appreciate that as well.
Yep, failing that, just like and subscribe, and we'll make sure that you don't miss a single episode. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
See you next time.